All right, let's get this meeting started. Leslie, you want to call the roll?
Okay. Josh Altum. Chris Pugh.
Here.
Sandra Lee.
Here.
Tad Wandell.
Here.
Linda Rhodes.
Here.
Mayor, we have a quorum with Josh Altum not being present.
Well, then our first item on our agenda for individual consideration. But before I start that, let me just say that I was made aware that yesterday that Gail Uranga's husband, Cliff, passed away. And I think most of you know Cliff. He was a really nice, gentle, good man. And I know that our city is blessed for not having him around. And our condolences go out to Gail Uranga and her family. So, item 1, consider ordinance 696, renewing the local disaster declaration. George?
Mayor, this item is on there because, as you know, the disaster declaration that you issued terminates by its provisions on April the 30th. That's consistent with what up to now has been the governor's orders and the county judge's order. I had sent to you all yesterday a copy of the governor's report, which is about 60 pages long for reopening Texas. But I also sent you and hope that you've had a chance to read his order, his actual GA 18 order, which is about 5 pages long. It is the order that supersedes his last order. And essentially what the report does is it begins to open most of the businesses in Texas in some form or another over a short period of time. His new order goes through May the 15th. And it's also written in such a way that the county judge, the mayors, individual municipalities really cannot adopt orders that vary, or at least that are more stringent than the governor's orders. My recommendation to you is that you go ahead and extend the mayor's order through the end of May. And the reason is that his order is written such that it incorporates the orders and any provisions of the governor's order. And at least, and Drew can chime in if he disagrees, I think he has agreed with me that if you adopt an ordinance extending the mayor's order to the end of May, it would essentially terminate if the governor allows his order to terminate and doesn't extend it that long. But I think as a safety precaution, just to be sure that we have a local order in place, I would recommend that you adopt the order, and the ordinance has been provided to you in your packet, which is, I can't remember the numbers, 696, and that you approve that order effective through the end of May to keep the mayor's order in place.
Drew, do you want to chime in at all here?
No, I think that's a good idea. You know, today the county judge indicated that Tarrant County is probably not going to issue any more orders and defer to what's in the governor's latest executive order. But your declaration incorporates the governor's executive orders, you know, and the language that he's put in there really, contrary to what some other cities are doing, it really does limit what you can do. But, you know, extending your declaration is a good idea. The main reason we did that in the beginning is potentially Kennedale could get funding in the future. I don't know how realistic that is, but that would keep that going.
Drew, the county call, the judge said that he didn't think we could have an ordinance that was either stricter or even lesser than the governor's, that we have to sort of go exactly with the governor. I was reading your memo suggesting we could go lesser, but the county doesn't seem to think so.
I think a city can come up with its own order as long as it doesn't, you know, what's listed in there, and I'll read it out. You know, the governor's order says this executive order shall supersede any conflicting order issued by local officials, but only to the extent that such a local order restricts essential services, reopens services allowed by this order, allows gatherings prohibited by this order, or expands the list of essential services or the list or scope of reopened services. That's a lot of stuff, but it doesn't prevent, in my opinion, doesn't prevent cities from still issuing orders.
Okay. Any discussion? Chad? Sandra?
No.
Linda?
No, thank you.
Chris?
No, sir.
All right, well, I entertain a motion to approve ordinance 696.
I make a motion to approve ordinance 696.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Leslie, will you take a roll call of the vote?
I will, and Josh just texted that he was having an issue joining. I don't know if we want to have.
He's never been much of a joiner.
Okay. Sorry. Okay, so Josh Altum is absent. So then, Chris Pugh, what was your vote?
Yay.
Okay. Sandra Lee,
Yay.
Chad Wendell,
Yay.
and Linda Rhodes.
Yay.
All right, Mayor, it has passed unanimously. Who made the motion in the second? I'm sorry.
Sandra made the motion, and I think Chris seconded it.
Okay.
And so the second item then is discussion of any COVID-19 issues within the city.
Mayor, I don't have anything particularly to add. I think that for the time being, the city is going to continue to operate the way we have been with, of course, the governor's order doesn't require, obviously, that we can manage our own facilities. And my intention is that we would continue to operate City Hall with people, the department heads and employees coming in as they need to perform their work on a daily basis, but it would remain closed to the public, keep the senior center closed and the library closed. We're working on a reopening implementation phase plan for the library. But right now, my inclination is that those facilities should stay closed as we're operating them now, at least until the May 15th date. And then that the governor has set, and then give more evaluation to what the virus status is and the number of cases that are being reported. And I'll be candid, as I read the governor's order and the report and the recommendations for how to operate various facilities and how people should react. It also outlines the way some of this virus is and the effects of it are still on the incline. So I think we need to be very cautious about moving ahead with anything we don't have to at this point, as long as we're providing all of our services to the citizens. And at this point, I think we are doing that. So we intend to continue to operate as we are, probably at least until May the 15th. And I'll have more discussions with staff about that probably tomorrow.
Any questions for George or any issues that anybody needs to bring up with about COVID-19 and businesses? So George,
Mayor, do we want to consider maybe not having our next meeting until May 12th? And that when we could discuss where we are on reopening at the end of that week?
well, we just scheduled the meetings. And so if we need to cancel next week because there's nothing going on, we're good.
Okay.
George, so this means that like Dickey's Barbecue can reopen as long as it's maintaining within the governor's restrictions. It means Iron Wheel can reopen as long as it maintains those restrictions.
Yeah, I think they have to maintain the CDC and the precautions, the social distancing. It also opens other facilities like, as I'm reading the order, like nail salons and barber shops and so forth, how they can all now some of that may not be right, but most businesses are going to be allowed to open in some fashion, as long as they meet those. And the same thing's true with churches and places of worship. So I'm not sure how and what the intent is to monitor that behavior, either by the businesses or by the patrons. But clearly there are guidelines, again, guidelines, not mandatory requirements, but guidelines set out in the governor's plan for how the businesses, how the employees, and how the patrons of those businesses should conduct their attendance in those retail businesses. There's no, I don't think, reasonable or rational way that any city, and certainly we're not equipped to monitor that in any significant way.
No, you really have to rely on individual cooperation
That's correct.
to get any of that done. Yeah. Oh, and there's Josh Alton. Any other questions?
I have a question for clarification of what was just said. This is Joe Palmer with Canada Alliance of Business Owners.
Joe, no, this meeting is not for any public hearing or questions.
No, it's not a hearing, obviously, but you have the ability to allow a question if you so choose.
And I'm not going to. So thank you very much for your input.
Oh, thanks for not being accommodating.
You're welcome.
Appreciate that very much.
Welcome. So
Yeah, your comment.
Anyway, so Josh, we renewed the ordinance. Josh, we renewed the ordinance, and do you have any issues with the COVID-19 related stuff in the city before we adjourn?
Hey, Brian, I have a question.
Shoot.
Does that include the racetrack that can reopen? Somebody asked me that today. Would the racetrack be allowed to reopen?
That's a good question.
And I have to go back and read some more of the detail that I haven't been able to read, but I know there's a section on there about sporting events and those kinds of things, as long as they maintain certain social distancing requirements and so forth, and other parameters. So Sandra, I can't answer the question without reading that report more closely.
Okay.
There are some provisions in that in sections that we may want to try to copy and make sure we're ready to hand out to people who are asking those kinds of questions, so they can refer directly to the governor's order.
Thank you, George.
I would just add that it's my understanding, unless I read that wrong, that retail can open on Friday at 25% capacity.
That's correct.
Yeah, so that's probably the biggest question we're going to get from retailers. They can open, people can go inside at 25% of their CO capacity.
Thank
Josh,
you, Melissa.
Josh, did you have any questions?
Can you?
Josh? Yeah, we can hear you.
I'm having major issues here. I don't have a clue what you're talking about, so no, I don't have any questions.
Well, I just said, did you have any questions about the COVID-19 in Kennedale? Any questions about the business or the impact for us?
Yeah, I'd like to get my hair cut.
I bought a pair of clippers, and I've gotten pretty good with them.
Well, no thanks. But what I don't understand is how, like, you can go to Home Depot and do the social distancing, but when you go to the barbershop here in town, all the seats are more than 6 feet apart. How come we can't open them up, you know?
Yeah, I was wondering, George, I don't think the nail salons and the barbershops are open yet.
I think that's correct. I think that's probably coming on about the 15th of May. I think you're right, Mayor.
Hey, Sandra, I'm going to make the assumption that we would call the racetrack a sport. And looking at the governor's order, it says individuals may engage in outdoor sports provided that they do not contact other participants and no more than 4 participants play at the same time. So if the decision is made that the racetrack is a sport, then they could only race 4 cars at one time.
Thank you, Chris.
I mean, that's how I read it. I don't know if that's correct, but that's on page 38. There's a section on outdoor sports.
Well, that's interesting that you're in a car and yet you could only have 4 people. That's
Well, I mean, if auto racing is a sport, it says outdoor sports. It doesn't really specify what a sport is.
So the only thing you can play is badminton.
Well, by the way, thanks to Amanda King for sending out that information on the library. That was very helpful. All right. If we got nothing else, anybody? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Really? Nobody?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right. Got a motion from Sandra?
Second.
Second by Linda. Chad, yay or nay?
Yay.
Sandra?
Yay.
Josh?
Nay, I just got here.
Linda?
Hey.
Chris?
Yay.
Therefore, we are adjourned.
All right, y'all have a good evening.
Yeah, you too. See y'all later.
All right, good seeing you.